And we are back. This is my reaction to the Manchester United Luton Town game. Coming at you a day later because I was in Manchester yesterday for the game because it was a big game for my family. Coming from a family that has grown up supporting both Manchester United and Luton. It was a very, very strange game to watch for me and my dad as we went together for this one. You can see the matchday scarf behind me hanging up. That'll always be in my YouTube background now if I can find the right place for it. But coming at things purely from a Manchester United perspective, I think the two biggest things we need to take away from this game are, firstly, there is a severe lack in confidence, I think, from the vast majority of the players. And secondly, we really are relying a little bit too much on Harry Maguire at the moment, which is a bit of a weird thing to say, but watching it from the perspective I was watching the game from, watching the highlights again this morning, it was quite clear that Harry Maguire was our best player, and I mean that from both an offensive and defensive standpoint. He really gave Carlton Morris little to nothing. Yes, he did have that one header that Onana brilliantly saved, but other than that, defensively, Maguire was absolutely dominant. But then, when we were actually starting to progress and play the ball forward, everything was running through Harry Maguire. And when I talk about confidence, and we'll get to that in a moment, he right now is by far and above the most confident player at Manchester United right now. He is willing to get on the ball. He's making driving runs into midfield. Some of his passes, whether it was outright to Rashford, but especially the balls out wide to Garnacho and then Rashford in the second half once Anthony came on. He's playing passes that you would expect from, like, you know, your top-level holding midfielders or creative midfielders. These 45, 60-yard diagonals that are out to the wide player. And he's doing it game in, game out. And this is why it's disappointing from a Manchester United perspective, is that we're playing these balls out to Rashford and Garnacho or whoever is out on that left-hand side. And then from there, we're just not quite seeing enough from the attacking players. And that's where I think the overall confidence comes into it. I just think the offensive players are severely lacking confidence right now. They just need things to start going their way. I think across all of the attacking line in the Premier League, we've still only had 2 goals between all of our attacking options. So that's Anthony, Rashford, Højlund, Garnacho, Sancho, if you still want to throw him in there, Martial, etc. They just need things to start going their way to just build up that confidence. And I actually came away from yesterday's game thinking that Højlund had a pretty poor game, but watching the match of the day analysis this morning, I can actually see that he did indeed have a good game. It again wasn't quite happening for him. He missed the chance that I really thought he should have scored at the early minutes, where he makes a brilliant run and it comes off his thigh and it's a brilliant save from Kaminsky. He then has that header in the second half, which he just heads wide. But it's his actual overall game that was really impressive, and I think I missed that a little bit yesterday because I was watching so many other things going on, as you do when you're at an actual game. So I apologise for my initial thoughts to Rasmus Højlund, because it turns out he was causing all sorts of problems, and what he was doing was he was allowing more space for Bruno Fernandes, Garnacho, Rashford and Anthony to then get into those goal-scoring positions, which they then themselves missed. Again, I think due to a lack of confidence. And on another day, Højlund would have got an assist for the Garnacho chance. Why he doesn't take that first time, I don't know. And then, of course, again in the second half, Anthony gets the ball. Very, very similar chance. Feeds it into Rashford. He again takes a touch when he could have just whipped it in the far corner first time. And I just think, like I say, I really thought, especially for Rashford at the end of the last international break when he scored for England, I thought that would then see that boost in confidence carry on forward. But it's just not quite happened yet. And I'm really hoping it's going to start clicking soon because, yes, it was Luton Town. Yes, they sat in and anchored themselves at the back. They kept themselves in the game. But if we're being honest, on another day, a better team scores 5 or 6 against Luton Town yesterday. And I just think, like I say, an out-of-confidence Manchester United side is being far too wasteful with great opportunities. And you look at the stats, we created 4 big chances. None of them were the actual goal. So that tells you everything you need to know about our attacking prowess at the moment. It's just not quite happening for us in front of goal. One thing I did notice, and it may play into this whole mindset of why we are struggling in front of goal, everyone's one-footed. And I know Ten Hag, when he came in, he picked out a few players. I know Luke Shaw was one of them because he was the one that they sort of spoke about to the media. We are a very one-footed side. You sort of go through the whole team. Dalot does everything on his right foot. Lindelof does everything on his right foot. Maguire does everything on his right foot. Reguilon did everything on his left foot. Eriksen, only two-footed player on the pitch, got subbed off because he got injured 30 minutes in after getting turned around by Ross Barkley, who had a brilliant game for Luton Town, by the way. Bruno's all right-footed. McTominay's all right-footed. Garnacho's all right-footed. Rashford's all right-footed. Højlund's all left-footed. Antony came on. He's all left-footed. So we're restricted in our creativity and our finishing options because everyone's just playing in little narrow corridors to get it onto their strong foots, to get the shots away, to get the passes away. And it just slows us down a little bit. And I think we need to work on that a little bit more. That doesn't necessarily mean improve on their weak foot, but just using it more in terms of opening themselves up. Like we always go on about Antony, how every time he gets the ball, he only kicks the ball with his left foot, then cuts inside instead of going onto his right foot, or even feinting going onto his right foot. You actually watch the game where you can see everyone on the pitch, and quite frankly, they're all doing it. So I think that definitely needs some sort of work because it's becoming a little bit too predictable all round to actually stop Manchester United playing because you can like tunnel vision them into their weak foots and they just don't really do anything from there. So that was something I noticed yesterday. And the other one that I did notice, which I think is a bit of a negative, I've got two final negatives, is firstly, and again, I know I've already spoken about Højlund, but the amount of times Højlund was making runs in behind and was being ignored by the midfield was really starting to get on my nerves towards the back end of the first half. As I talked about already, he was creating opportunities and creating space for other players, but at the same time, when he makes his movements in behind, he really shouldn't be ignored as much as he was. And there was a few times where Lindelof had it, could have fed it round the outside into the channel. There's a few times where Eriksen and Bruno dropped in short. They could have fed it in behind. And again, I just think it's lack of confidence. No one wants to be brave enough to play the risky ball into the forwards in fear of losing it. But quite frankly, against a team like Luton Town, again, with the greatest of respects to Luton Town, a side that isn't exactly prolific on the ball, I think you can afford to take riskier passes against a team like that to try and create even more opportunities. And that was probably one of my biggest disappointments yesterday, is that Højlund was putting all this effort in and really not getting the rewards that he should be. And it was only really, as I've already spoken about, Harry Maguire that was taking those risks by playing those big diagonal passes at the risk of giving the ball away, but actually ending up creating more opportunities by playing those expansive passes. My final complaint is Mason Mount. Like, Eriksen was doing a good job. Obviously, he got injured, but getting turned by Ross Barkley. But for the first 30 minutes of the game, Eriksen was winning that midfield battle in terms of getting on the ball and being more creative than Ross Barkley. Once Mason Mount came on, from the 30th minute until the 88th minute, Ross Barkley absolutely played him off the pitch. And that's a real worry because, quite frankly, Mason Mount replaced Ross Barkley at Chelsea because the expectation was he was going to be better than Ross Barkley. And in reality, what I've seen yesterday, I was going to say today, what I saw yesterday is that Ross Barkley absolutely owned Mason Mount. He was more physical than him. He was more athletic than him. He was more willing than him. He was getting on the ball better. He was feeding the ball better, doing better turns. And just all-round play was just better than what Mason Mount was offering. So that's looking like a really worrying signing at the moment. I know Ten Hag has said about his lack of game time due to injuries, and we'll start seeing the best out of him once he starts playing more regularly. Where is he going to play more regularly? I don't know. He's not going to play where Bruno's playing unless we start playing Bruno on the right again. But we already know that that doesn't work. So I just don't know where Mason Mount's career is going to be at Manchester United, because we can't have him as one of the two sitting midfielders, because for me it needs to be McTominay as the box-to-box driving midfielder. And then once we have our holding midfielder, whether that's Amrabat or Casemiro back in the side, there's no place for Mount, because you really shouldn't be playing McTominay as the holding midfielder, because his actual expansive passing, receiving the ball and then playing the ball isn't that good, something I've spoken about on this channel before. So it's a real worry for me that we've spent nearly 70 million on a player that just doesn't have a place in this side at the moment. And that is the biggest concern I had about him when we were going to sign him in the first place. So, yeah, interesting situations at Manchester United. But regardless, we're still in a good position in the table going into Sunday. We're actually only 3 points off the top four. Granted, games in hand today from some of those teams in and around the top four. So we probably won't be 3 points off top four by the end of the night. But at the end of the day, we're still in a semi-good position in the Premier League. Yes, the Champions League situation is not ideal, but we spoke about that in the last reaction video. Just got to really work on that confidence building. Just get the players believing in themselves, do some more shooting practice in training, get them that feeling of hit the ball hitting the back of the net and just saying to them, right, you can take these first time. You are capable of scoring these goals in these situations. And I just think there is something to build on there. And I know some of the people online are going, oh, you scraped a 1-0 against Luton. How embarrassing is that? But it's not embarrassing that we beat Luton 1-0 because it was a narrow victory. It's embarrassing because we had so many golden opportunities and didn't take any of them. That for me is the embarrassment, not the fact that it was a narrow win. It's the reason why is because we were missing chances rather than the fact that we were hanging on against Luton, which quite frankly we really weren't. So those are all of my thoughts. Let me know what you think down in the comments section. Are we heading back in the right direction, or is it just the fact that we played Luton Town and won 1-0 is the only reason why we've actually won this game? So thank you very much for watching. As always, I may have another Manchester United video out for you in the next couple of days before we start all of our international break predictions. So I'll see you then.